Wahab Barim National Disaster Management Authority Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnian ulamaham ba kat banangwan ki Karkana ki Surok ki Liengsuin bat kiwi ki kampenroy kat kumkani kajuk kataru ki Jingjia kan nangmi. Katanat Revenue and Disaster Management Department berkemikhlaya State Disaster Management Authority dan kat National Disaster Management Authority yang katanat Home Affairs Kasuka India kila pelong jing aji hikai hal kumno baniada haba kruit ke bor mariang ne haba wan kanu ke jingjia mentakas ngi hasilong usayat ata ong bagari kelamat sibun ke jingjia na ke bor jeng kemariang Henry ke haba lapan kre kumno baniada kan kamlaj na ke jingjulol ong ba baniada na jing syak penjulah ke bor mariang kadon kam manya tilang haprang kitanat beper jeng kesoka kum kitanat boarding kitanat page suin peneng bat kiwe Ong ru bakane ke subjek kalong ke badon kambha bat kandai ke wei ne ke subjek ke badon kambha hagis school bat ki college hagis ngi ki bansawan ong ba ke badon kam kalong bagi nong song sinong gede ban tip bat ke jingnang baniada nengkong habami kanu ke jingjia usayat ata ong bagi nong song sinong gede bandon ke sachet up hakaban ajing tip halo ke jingwan ke eryong bat klenti yang Lentia jongka kenang bagi breu kentip kuno banyada lupa habawan kibol jong kemariang.
Preparing ourselves for that eventuality once in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, maybe 100 years. An earthquake could hit Meghalaya once in 100 years. We want to make sure that once when it hits the state, we don't lose a single life. And very important, now besides not losing a single life, no one must go out of job. So the livelihood of a person must not be taken away from him. That is the honorable mission of all of us who are involved in the domain of disaster management today. So we are not here for testing anyone. We are here to instigate your minds. Trigger thoughts in your minds. If you are not aware of some of these things, make you aware of them. So that you bring it to the notice of the community at large. And as everyone in society moves along, we'll be in a far better position to be able to fight these disasters. Few points of interest for you, just to take on. The Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has, in a conference in 2016, given out an agenda on disaster management. It's on disaster risk resilience. It's called the 10-point agenda. If you have not read it as a disaster manager, then you have not readied yourself to be a disaster manager. It is available on the Ndma website. I would strongly recommend, I'm sure it must be on the website of the Meghalaya as a SDMA. If it's not, it should be included. So that people can access it and read it. There are 10 actionable issues. This has become a mantra today in the world of disaster management. Not in India, internationally. And this particular subject has become so important that you can imagine that during the G20, when India was the chair of the G20, we managed to introduce disaster management as a key subject domain in the agenda of the conference. And that since then has now caught on. Every country which becomes the chair is taking this on. One of the very important things in this agenda is community response, preparedness of the communities, which is all of us. All of us are members of the community. If something happens in the Garo Hills, it should not be incumbent on us to respond from Shillong or Guwahati. We should have the local capability to respond until the next responders can fetch in. A stage will come in India in the future when we even have our own aviation resources in every state, so that we don't have to look upon the Air Force. Each time you have a disaster, the first thing we do is to look at the Air Force. You are fortunate you have a whole command here, Eastern Air Command here. Another very important point in the agenda of the Prime Minister is the issue of early warning. Now, if I ask in this hall, I'm sure most of you are carrying your mobile with you. Put your hand on your heart and tell me, how many people have downloaded the Sachet app? When you go back home today, you can tell your children that you have attended something which is a developing domain on which the future generations will have a lot to speak, discuss, and execute. At the moment, we are not suffering from too much from issues involving disaster yet. But if a couple of things happen in India, number one, the effect of climate change. As the effect of climate change continues, as we develop our infrastructure, more roads, more airfields, more industry, as you develop economically, you will have more chemical industry, you will have more industrial parks. I can assure you, one of the things which will keep increasing with this will be disasters. And it's a subject which in the very near future is going to be a compulsory subject in the education of every child. And not sound completely ignorant on a subject which is going to actually dictate your lives in the future. Let me give you an example. We had a major cyclone which hit Gujarat 2 years ago, 2023 June. So much unlike what happened in Odisha where we lost over 10,000 dead. This super cyclone called Biparjoy in the year 2023 resulted in not even one fatality. Why did it happen? Because various departments of the government came together. The Indian Meteorological Department, of which I'm sure there are people sitting here, the IMD started tracing out the cyclone. We had developed a technology for early warning, so we started giving out the early warning from NDMA, the SDMA, down to the DDMAs. We moved the NDRF in time. We warned the army. We got the Air Force in place. We had already developed a number of shelters along the coastline. So all those people who did not have proper pakka houses, we could move a couple of 100,000 people into those houses. We had good roads all along the coastline, so movement of people was not difficult. All the electricity lines and telephone lines were all buried under the ground, so there was no effect of the cyclone on the poles which got uprooted, did not have effect on the communications. All this happened because the state of Gujarat was prepared for that disaster. Action from the Prime Minister of India. Every single man in uniform will have this app downloaded on his mobile. Every single man, and know how to use it. Similarly, every disaster manager must have it. What is Sachet? What is Sachet? Sachet is an early warning app. Now, if you start looking at your Sachet app, it will start telling you over a period of time where the cyclone is and if it is likely to hit your area, what is the likely effect in your area. So, the purpose of this kind of a meeting, besides anything else, besides getting the whole system geared up together, is to bring these issues to notice. You should be aware that one of the most important things in the nation at the moment on which the NDMA has been asked to focus is the school safety program. We cannot afford to have fires in our schools. If tomorrow there's an earthquake, we cannot afford to lose our children because they are separated from their parents inside schools. Besides that, one of the very major programs which is under focus of the government of India is the hospital safety program.